Welcome into the On3 Studios. We're live here in Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Wednesday, July 24th. You are here for the Inside Scoop. Host Josh Newberg. We got a big show today because the dead period has opened up for one more weekend. It means the final recruiting weekend of the summer is here. Lots of visits this weekend. Not as many commitment dates are set. Doesn't mean that there won't be some surprises and some commitments this weekend, but not as many set up as they have been in prior weekends, mostly due to this is the last visit weekend of the summer. So before we get into the show, let's take a look at the top 10 as it stands right now. Ohio State on top, LSU, UGA, Oregon. Now, LSU, UGA, they're both having big recruiting weekends this weekend, so we'll see if anything comes out of that. Then you got Clemson, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, Miami, and FSU in there at number 10. Oklahoma and Tennessee at 11 and 12. Maybe Tennessee could sneak up in there. Remember, Lagonza Shady Hayward making his decision. Will it be UGA or Tennessee? He's going to make that decision on Saturday. Could the Vols end up inside the top 10 before the weekend's over? You guys let me know any changes to this top 10. Let me know, comment section below. All right, we have a monster show today. We're going to start with Georgia. We have some Alabama recruiting intel, Auburn, and Oklahoma. So, big old show today. Let's get to it. The Georgia Bulldogs are sitting number 4 in the On3 recruiting rankings, but the sleeping giant might be just getting going. Big weekend in Athens. We're going to talk to Jake Rowe from Dogs HQ. He's going to take us behind the scenes of this weekend's final big summer recruiting event. But before we get going, Dog fans, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We love talking UGA recruiting. We need you to be a part of it. Hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring in Jake Rowe from Dogs HQ. And just moments ago, Chad Simmons and Jeremy Johnson broke the news that 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry is confirmed. He's going to be in Athens this weekend. He was committed to UGA, then he committed to USC, recently decommitted to USC. Back in Athens this morning. Got to feel good about where the Dogs stand heading in this weekend, huh?
Man, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I always think about this weekend, and you don't always get the guys you want. Like last year, Georgia got L.J. McCray on campus for this visit. They didn't end up getting him. But when you've got 2 guys that are leaning to you, or 3 guys or 4 guys left in this class that are leaning to you, like a Justice Terry, I would say, it just doesn't get any bigger, man. It really just doesn't get any bigger because, you get that kind of last impression for the next month because they're not going to be able to go anywhere until, games start. And on top of it all, I think Alabama had probably, kind of gotten his name in the mix. I wouldn't say Alabama had a bunch of momentum or they were trending or anything like that for Justice Terry, but Alabama had stuck its nose right dead in there, and that's what Kalen DeBoer is doing right now. He is absolutely boring into every recruitment that he possibly can and doing a great job, and they've got a phenomenal class going. And when you see all that momentum they had, and then you start mentioning getting, with Justice Terry, I mean, I understand why some Georgia fans had a little concern there, but getting him on campus this weekend definitely shows that Georgia is a really big time player for him, obviously.
Hey, you got to go toe for toe because remember when Justice Terry announced his decommitment from USC, 24 hours later, not even 24 hours later, he was in Tuscaloosa. He announced that night that he was decommitting and visiting Alabama. So we know the Tide have at least a foot in the door. It's huge for UGA to get him on campus before the summer ends. How about 5-star defensive lineman Elijah Griffin? We saw Steve Wiltfong earlier this week. He says that Elijah Griffin is also expected in Athens this weekend. So it's huge for them to get 2 of their top targets on the defensive line on campus. Elijah Griffin, a very similar situation to Justice Terry. Seems like UGA is the team to beat there.
Yeah, that's all the word I have gotten, for months and months and months. It hasn't really changed. Now he's taken a lot of visits. I think there's the potential there for both of these guys, obviously, to take it the distance, but even more so for Elijah Griffin to kind of come down to that December, date on when he's going to make his decision. But ultimately, again, getting him on campus, that's absolutely huge. And, it's kind of operation signed the best D-line class in maybe the history of the world, definitely in the history of Georgia football. Is engaged at this point. I mean, not only that, they have Christian Miller, who Charles Power we know has very highly ranked as well. They're still recruiting Kevin Wynn, who is a Florida State commitment. But getting Griffin and Terry on campus this weekend to kind of be around a lot of commitments. That's another thing, Josh, is Rusty Mansell, my man over at Dogs HQ, put out a really good visitor list this past weekend, and it is huge with 2025 commits. And when you can get guys like this to get there and spend some time with your commits and your players and your coaches, it's a huge boost. It's a huge boost. And you also know that because of proximity, both of these guys are going to be on campus come fall as well, either in September, October, November.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait a little bit longer, or a bit longer, maybe even a couple more months, until Elijah Griffin makes his first decision. Now, Justice Terry, he's on his third decision. We don't exactly know when that'll come, but it could possibly come before the season. We'll have to wait and see what Dogs HQ's reporting out of this weekend. All right, another big dog on campus this weekend, on 300 cornerback Jonte Gilbert. Now, this one is not trending in UGA's direction. Actually, NC State is the RPM leader for cornerback Jonte Gilbert out of Atlanta, Georgia, but he's in Athens this weekend, and he is not far away from a decision. Jake, what do you think the importance of this weekend is for Gilbert's recruitment? Inside Scoop fans, college football season is wrapping up, and it also means that the NFL is winding down as well. But there's still some great games left in the season. And you know what's not great, though? Finding last-minute tickets. Finding last-minute tickets, it can be a nightmare. Do not let this be the way your 2024 goes. That's why I'm here to tell you about Game Time. It is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the big-time matchups. The Game Time app is great. It's easy to use, and it works in any city, any team. And you get the best price guarantee. Do not stress over getting into your team's favorite games anymore. There's only so many big games, and you need to get these tickets at the best prices. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money. Zone deals, all right? This is where you pick a section, and Game Time picks the seats for big savings. So here's what we're going to do. Snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Josh, man, you did this for a long time, and there are just certain recruitments that it's like trying to pick up a tiny little piece of an eggshell inside of the bowl after you've already done it. Like, you just can't get to it. You can't figure out how to get your hands around it. And this is one of them. I mean, Georgia was in it, and then they weren't, and then he committed to Ohio State. And I'm not even necessarily going chronologically here. This is kind of how my brain works on this particular recruitment. But he is committed to Ohio State. Then everybody thought, well, it's going to be Georgia. Well, Georgia didn't go that hard to begin with. And then Georgia hires a new DB staff, and they're in it. Then they go away for a while again, and now they had him on campus for a camp, right at the beginning of the summer, visitation evaluation period. And I think he camped really well. And since then, Georgia has been able to kind of get him on campus in a visitor capacity. They're going to get a chance again this weekend.
Yeah.
I'll say this, Josh, if Georgia really pushes, and if Georgia really kind of rolls out the red carpet and puts his best foot forward this weekend and really pushes and recruits Jonte Gilbert until that commitment date, which I believe is a couple weeks away on August the 10th, I think that Georgia's going to be very tough to beat. But I don't know. They have 4 guys in that defensive back class now. I think they can land Gilbert. And I think they want to land Gilbert right now, but I'm interested to see where it's at in August, because this recruitment on both sides is just taking so many twists and turns.
All right. Now, there's also going to be a loaded group of 2026 prospects on campus. That's what happens towards the end of the summer. You got to start focusing on the next class. Prize quarterback commitment, Jared Curtis is going to be on campus. Offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell. And the number 2 ranked wide receiver in America, wide receiver Aaron Gregory, also on campus. Do you think that we could see maybe UGA go on a little run for 2026 before the season gets going?
Oh, man, Josh, that's a great question. I mean, it's always possible. But, when you start talking about Jackson Cantwell's and Aaron Gregory's, we know how recruiting goes now, and those next summer's visits are those guys kind of aim at this point. They want to get to those visits because, and not that they're not the type of guys that could commit right now and then not have as many visits as they want lined up when the time comes. But I just feel like you don't see those guys really commit and shut it down early. I mean, definitely Justice Terry did not do that. I mean, Georgia's still recruiting him, and he was an early commit. So I don't know about a run, but I do know that these visits right now, they mean a lot. They all do. And I do think Georgia is a player for both of those prospects, even as tough as it is to get a big-time player out of Missouri these days.
All right. Yeah, this is really going to lay the groundwork for that 2026 class, and there are some studs. Rusty Manziel put out that dog treats article earlier this week, and there is some intel on the 2026 names that'll be there. You guys go check that out. Jake Rowe from Dogs HQ. It's going to be a busy weekend in Athens. Thanks for dropping into the Inside Scoop today.
All right, buddy. You got it.
It's been a cold summer in Alabama, especially on the recruiting trail. Now, Bama has the #1 class in America, and they're looking for more. They are not done yet this week. One last chance to host some top prospects and make a push before the fall. We got Andrew Bone on this video from Bama Online. He's going to take us behind the scenes of what Alabama has going on this weekend. But before we get going, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We need you Alabama fans to hop on board. It's exciting times. Hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring in Andrew Bone from Bama Online. So we got the cookout going on this week, and I know Bama fans are kind of used to this at the end of July, but with Kalen DeBoer on board now, is it any different from what Bama fans have seen in the past? Or what is this weekend really all about?
Well, it's different in the sense that you have 23 commitments already on your recruiting board.
That's really different.
In previous years, they had 15, 16 guys heading into that final weekend. You're trying to add a couple more guys before the start of the season. Alabama's class is almost full. So having 23 commitments, a lot of those guys committing. I think they had 12 commitments between June the 4th and July the 12th. So it was a really busy summer, really busy month that we saw as Alabama calls it the cold summer, and they certainly did a great job. So we're going to see a lot of commitments back in Tuscaloosa. A lot of those guys that have made decisions. I think 9 of the 13 commitments that happened in that month are going to be back in Tuscaloosa this weekend. You're going to have some top juniors that are going to be on campus as well. And then, obviously, we're going to be watching to see who else might show up.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of who else might show up, you said it. Alabama's almost finished, but they are chasing a few big names like an AKD or a Ty Jackson, Khalil Lockett, or Justice Terry. So I know it's early in the week, and some of these big time visits don't pop up until the very end. But are there any possibilities that could pop up on campus? And is there somebody amongst this group that really needs to be on campus for Bama to have a shot at him?
Well, I think first off, Justice Terry and A.K. Deere, those are the two guys I think we're watching pretty closely. Neither one have announced any plans for this weekend yet, right. But if they get either one of those guys on campus, it'll be obviously very big for the Crimson Tide. And probably more so for Justice Terry because that's a kid that Alabama – in my opinion, probably on the outside looking in for heading into the summer. Then they were able to get him on campus for that official visit that last weekend in June before the dead period hit. Mm-hmm. And I think they made up a lot of ground. That said, Georgia's still kind of the team to beat for Justice Terry. So if they could get him back on campus one more time before fall practice starts, I think they'd have a legit chance there. Now with A.K. Deere, that's been one that's been trending towards Alabama since his decommitment from Ole Miss on June the 28th. I think it's probably only a matter of time before he makes a decision, but I think there's probably a really good chance that he's going to be on campus this weekend. Now, with Khalil Lockett, I just don't think he's going to be able to make it back to Tuscaloosa with a decision coming up here in the next few weeks. Probably trending towards the home state Longhorns, but if they were able to get him back on campus, obviously they'd have a little bit of a better chance with him. But really looking to see what happens with A.K. Deer and Justice Terry this weekend.
Yeah, but if Khalil Lockett does show up in Tuscaloosa, the recruiting world is going to lose its mind, because that's just about a week before he announces his decision, and we know Keelan Russell is going to be in town. So if Khalil Lockett makes it in, I think that is the visit that Bama fans would just go crazy about. So we'll just keep an eye on it. Couple days till the weekend, like you said, there's probably going to be some names that pop up. Now, to be fair, I also got to ask you about a couple Bama commitments that are going to be visiting elsewhere, namely Caleb Cunningham and athlete Derek Smith. Both will be out on the plains for Big Cat Weekend. What does it mean, and is there any concern for Alabama fans?
Well, I think if you had players in your recruiting class who weren't being pursued by other programs heavily, then you might have a little bit of a problem. So we knew that schools weren't going to stop recruiting Derek Smith, Caleb Cunningham. There's other guys in Alabama's class who are still being heavily pursued by other programs as well. But as you mentioned, Cunningham and Smith have confirmed that they will be on the plains this weekend. Auburn's certainly pushing for both of those guys. Now, we talked to Caleb Cunningham the other day. He says nothing to worry about. He's 100% committed, not flipping, anything like that. But as long as you're still taking visits to other schools, I mean, it's always something to watch. And then with Derek Smith, I think with Derek Smith, the one thing that we're watching, paying very close attention to is his future position. Alabama's recruited him more so as a defensive back at the safety position. Auburn's recruited him more as a wide receiver. Now, he's come out and said it doesn't really matter to him where he plays. He just wants to get on the field, help the team the best way that he can. So at the end of the day, he's probably going to make a decision on, I do want to play this position as opposed to X position. So I have to wait and see kind of how that all unfolds. But as of right now, still committed to Alabama, but it's still going to be a fight all the way until the finish line.
All right. Well, like I said, one more big recruiting weekend in Tuscaloosa. We've seen what happens on these big recruiting weekends. There generally has been commitments coming out. Not too many names left on the board, so Bama fans, talk to us. Who out there is your top priority right now of the uncommitted targets? Let us know. Comment section below. Auburn, they've been inside the top 10 when it comes to the On3 industry rankings. They've been outside the top 10. Then they were back inside. They're currently sitting at number 16 overall, but the Tigers are trending for a few key targets. We're going to have on Jeffrey Lee of Auburn Live. He's going to take us behind the scenes of Auburn recruiting in this video. But before we get going, make sure you guys are subscribed to the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. Auburn fans, we need you to be a part of this. Hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on Jeffrey Lee from Auburn Live. Now we're talking about who Auburn's trending for. Let's start with Anquan Fagans. He's going to be making his decision on July 29th right here on the On3 Recruits channel. Now, it never comes easy for Auburn because this weekend Fagans is going to make a quick trip to LSU. Could this be trouble?
It could be trouble, Josh, as we all know in recruiting. Anytime a kid takes a visit right before a commitment, could be trouble for the team that is trending for him. I just really feel like this one was over a long time ago. I do. I feel like Charles Kelly coming in there is making a big impact with Anquan Fagans, his father. And if you don't recall, Fagans' brother just transferred in as a preferred walk-on to Auburn. I think after that it was pretty much a done deal for Auburn, and I just feel like an LSU visit this weekend would be just let me check to make sure, and right. Yes, it is.
All right, we'll see. DB Blake Woodby, he decommitted from Ohio State back in May. Now he's trending heavily to Auburn. I'm hearing a lot of smoke from our guys, Chad Simmons and Steve Wiltfong. But when do you think Blake Woodby is going to be ready to make his decision?
I think he's a big cat guy. I think he's a Saturday decision. I think, like Fagans, I think this one was over a long time ago. I think it was over several weeks ago. I think he's just been waiting for the right time to make the biggest splash. And I expect Woodby to commit to Auburn on Saturday during Big Cat or shortly thereafter, maybe even to get it started. But I would be surprised if Sunday comes and he hasn't committed.
All right. And then if he commits over the weekend, that means Anquan Fagans is right behind him just a few days later. So we'll see what happens there. Now, athlete Derek Smith, he's committed to Alabama. If he shows at Big Cat Weekend, as you guys are reporting and is expected, is a flip possible, or is this a battle that's going to go into the fall?
No, I think a flip is absolutely possible. And he's scheduled to be at Bama on Sunday as well, but this is a guy we're going to be keeping a very close eye on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Auburn has been prioritizing him since early in this recruitment. Marcus Davis, Hugh Freeze has been very involved in his recruitment. They like him. They like Derek Smith on offense. They like him at wide receiver. Absolutely, he could play defense. He could play safety. But Auburn really likes him on offense. They like him at wide receiver. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on. He was on campus a couple of weeks ago at the end of June for an official visit. So he's definitely on the flip watch for me.
Yeah. And then on August 3rd, a huge day on the On3 Recruit Channel. We're going to have 3 live commitments that day, one of them being edge Jared Smith. Now, as I said, he commits August 3rd, so we are really getting down to it. He's trending heavily to Auburn on the On3 RPM machine. But Jeff, who here is the biggest competition, as we're less than 2 weeks away from his decision?
Yeah, I think it has been and continues to be South Carolina.
Yeah.
I think he was trending that way heavily up until Auburn really got into the mix, started making a push, and that was towards the middle of the summer. He made a couple of unofficial visits to Auburn for team camp, for elite camp, and he's coming back Saturday, 3 or 4 days before his commitment. I really feel like Auburn has made a big push, prioritized him of late, and I would be surprised if he commits anywhere but Auburn at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're talking about him, was it August 3rd, Josh?
Yep, August 3rd.
So between now and probably next week at this time, which would be August 3rd-ish, I think Auburn could be upwards of 8 new commitments, including Jared Smith, Blake Woodby, Anquan Fagans. Derek Smith is a guy to keep an eye on. Deuce Knight is another guy to keep an eye on. But there's also 3 2026 guys we're going to be watching extremely closely in Hezekiah Harris, Shadarius Tootle, and Jamichael Garrett. So this could be the start of a very fun week for Auburn recruiting fans.
All right, Auburn fans, tap in. Comment section below. How fun is this week going to get? Let us know who you think could be the next commitment for the Auburn Tigers. Comment section below. Oklahoma currently sitting at number 11 in the On3 industry recruiting rankings, but the Sooners want to lock in a spot inside the top 10. They got a few major targets still remaining on the board. We got Josh McCuistion from Soonerscoop.com on this video. He's going to take us behind the scenes of everything OU recruiting. But first, hit subscribe to the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. Sooner fans, we need you to lock in. Go ahead, hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on Josh McCuistion from Soonerscoop.com. And we're talking OU's remaining targets. Let's start in the trenches. We got Michael Fasusi and Andrew Babalola. Now, we know it's going to be a battle for both of these guys. And as it stands right now, I'd probably put the Sooners legitimately in the race for both of them, but probably not the leader for either of them. Which one do you think Oklahoma has a better shot at?
For me right now, I would lean to Michael Fasusi. And, I know that absolutely the belief has been for a long time that Texas was his leader. And I was one that bought into that. I 100% believe that to be true for most of the spring and early summer. When he took the official visit to Norman, it felt like something changed. Like there's just been a little bit of a difference in the way people are talking about this, the way just the things I hear sound much more positive for Oklahoma. Now, does that mean they can close the deal? We don't know. We've seen Oklahoma struggle in that regard where they get all the way to the mountaintop but can't quite reach the peak. And I think that's what we're going to have to see with Michael Fasusi. Can they close the deal here? Because we know Texas isn't going away. Texas A&M is going to do everything they can do. But this feels like an OU-Texas battle to me. And, again, talking to some people familiar with it on the Texas side of things as well, I think there's real concern Oklahoma's done something here to maybe surprise some people on August 21st.
Well, we will see August 21st. Michael Fasusi will be coming off the board. Now, let's switch gears. Let's talk about linebacker Christian Jones. He's out of the state of Nebraska, and to me, it seems like it's a 2-team race here between the Sooners and the Huskers. Is that how you read it?
Absolutely. I see it the exact same way. And this is another one that, again, for a long time, I just thought he was going to end up at Nebraska. It was, talking to Christian, he was always very open, liked Oklahoma a lot, liked Oklahoma's got like 4 guys with real linebacker linebacker, either experience, coaching experience. James Skalski that played at Clemson. You've got Zach Alley now, the new defensive coordinator. Brent Venables obviously has a lot of background and track record at linebacker. So there's a lot there, and that forgets a guy like Rufus Alexander, who was an All-American at Oklahoma, that's also on the staff. So there are a lot of guys with a lot of familiarity with that position, and I think that is meaningful in this recruitment. But again, just talking to people, some of the decisions that Oklahoma has made, namely kind of passing on Mark Iannaccio, the linebacker that committed to SMU a couple of weeks ago, that felt like a decision for Oklahoma, and they need another linebacker. Well, why would they make that decision unless they feel pretty good about Christian Jones? So, again, I don't think anything certain. We've seen Nebraska kind of snag a few from Oklahoma, kind of at the 11th hour in the last couple of classes with Grant Bricks, Cade Pietschak just the other day. So this shouldn't be counted as over. But I do like where Oklahoma is, and I do think this is an absolute, old Big 8 battle between Oklahoma and Nebraska.
Love to see it. Anyone else OU fans should keep an eye on? Because Oklahoma's sitting at 22 commitments. So we covered kind of the biggest targets on the board, but there's still a couple more spots left available.
There was talk all spring long that this was going to be like a 19, 20 person class. And I kept looking at the numbers. I was like, that's not going to happen. There's no way. And again, have missed out on Cade Pietschak. We know they would take another off. If they could get Babalola and Fasusi, which obviously is not going to happen, they would do it. So I think Oklahoma's willing to play with the numbers, but I think any guy that you see beyond the three we've just discussed with Babalola, Fasusi, and Christian Jones, I think it's going to be a new target. I think it might be a guy that either they kind of had an eye on, maybe somebody that's committed elsewhere, but there's no clear-cut name. Even maybe just a guy that emerges as a senior. But I don't think there's anyone that they clearly say, like they're looking at right now that they're actively involved with, because most of Oklahoma's targets have made their decisions at this point, like so many other major programs around the country. So, I think it's going to take a curveball for one of these guys. Now, obviously, if they miss out on both the offensive tackles we've discussed, they're going to have to do something. They need another body there. So, I think that is we're gonna know by September 1st how they're going to kind of play this going forward.
All right, so wrap it up. What do you think OU's biggest need was heading into the cycle, and have they done a good enough job of filling it so far?
To me, and Josh, I think this is the 37th show we've done. We've talked a lot about this. It was offensive line. It was always going to be offensive line. And I think they've done a nice job. I like Darius Afalava. I know they like Owen Hollenbeck a lot. They really see him as he's a huge power lifter, big, strong guy. And Ryan Foje, at the time, there were OU fans who were like, why are they taking this guy? And then you just watch him climb the rankings for everybody. And it's like, oh, no, that was a really good evaluation, and Oklahoma's done a good job with him. At the same time, they need at least one more. This had to be at least a 2-tackle class, and Afalava and Hollenbeck are definitely inside guys. So they need someone to pair with Foje, and if it's Fasusi, hey, A+, job done, whatever else you do on the offensive line, just bonus. But if they miss out on Babalola and Fasusi and only have Foje, that's a problem. That's not getting what you needed to get done, and especially when it was such a regionally strong class of offensive linemen with so many great players from Dallas. We talk about Babalola from the Midwest. There's a lot that surrounded Oklahoma. It was kind of unique. They needed to do a lot, and if you only get one of these guys, I think that's a real problem.
Yeah, we were definitely more optimistic, say, back in February or March than we are now, and now it becomes a major need. So we'll see what happens down the stretch. They still got a couple weeks to go. OU fans, talk to us. Comment section below. How do you feel about this class? What do you think the biggest need is? Let us know. Comment section below. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.